evening. I'm Lisa Groot, a member of the Dubuque League of Women Voters. The League is a nonpartisan political organization which encourages informed and active citizen participation in government. Membership is open to any citizen 18 years of age or older. We would like to thank the Dubuque County candidates for their participation this evening and for their invaluable gift to Dubuque by being candidates for public office. John Murphy, a Democrat, is running for Dubuque County Recorder. For Dubuque County Treasurer, we have Michael Clausen, Republican, and Angela Steffens, Democrat. Laura McCarthy-Cohn is also running as a Democrat, but was unable to be with us this evening. There are three candidates running in the primary for county attorney. They are Scott Nelson, Republican, CJ May, Democrat, and Sam Whitten, Democrat. Richard Kirkendall is also a candidate for county attorney, but because he is not associated with the party and will not be on the June 7th primary ballot, he is not here tonight. He will be on the general election ballot November 8th, and he will be invited to the League's October 12th forum. So for our first question, we're going to ask each of you why you're running for the position that you are seeking. So Mr. Murphy, we'll begin with you. Please tell us why you're running for Dubuque County Recorder.
So during my first campaign, I expressed a desire to lead the Recorder's office with two goals. First of which was to modernize the office, and the second was to provide exceptional customer service. Have we modernized the office? Yes. We now have hosted servers in a Tier 4 data center instead of having them in servers that were in the attic of the courthouse. And in the event that something happened at the courthouse, every night somebody would take home a cartridge with all the land data for the county. So now it's in a Tier 4 data center. We've digitized all of our land records, and they're now publicly available on our website. We are one of just a few in Iowa and maybe a couple dozen across the country that have all of our land records on a public-facing website. We've also digitized all of our military records, and they're also in our hosted solution. And these efforts have been recognized by industry leaders, both here at the state level and at the federal level, through the State Association of Counties monthly magazine, and during a webinar that talked about best practices in recording. With that, I will wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clausen, why are you running for county treasurer?
Thank you, Lisa and the League of Women Voters, for the opportunity to answer questions this evening so the residents of Dubuque County can see that I'm the most qualified candidate. I'm running for Dubuque County Treasurer because I know that my background, experience, and leadership capacity allow me to serve the people of this county, which they deserve from an elected official. As a lifelong Dubuque County resident, a graduate of Western Dubuque High School, I attended the University of Northern Iowa and played football under Coach Allen. In August of 1998, I graduated from Marine Corps boot camp in San Diego, and I spent the next 8 years serving my country. Serving as a squad leader, mentoring, and leading 14 Marines in a combat zone, I gained invaluable leadership skills that taught me to lead from the front. I've worked in the private sector for over 15 years, gaining experience in managing employees, improving efficiencies, and helping local companies achieve their financial goals. Currently, I'm an assistant vice president in commercial banking, helping businesses with their growth initiatives by understanding their historical financial statements. In 2017, I graduated with my master's in business administration from UD, which advanced my management skills and gave me a greater working knowledge of how businesses need to be ran. Tonight, you're going to hear a common theme from me, and it's going to be transparency, visibility, and fiscal accountability, and that I'm the most qualified candidate for the treasurer's position.
Thank you. Ms. Steffens, why are you running for county treasurer?
Thank you guys for tonight and the League of Women Voters for inviting me to do this with you. I started my experience out with the county in 2004. I worked with the treasurer's office for the first 11 years of that time. I then moved on to the zoning department where I was their clerk as well as their administrative assistant. I've recently been back to the treasurer's office 3.5 months. So in total, I've been with the county for 18 years and have quite a bit of experience working with and communicating with the staff, other county officials, and communicating also with the department itself. Working with the staff is one of my biggest things as well. I'm running because I have firsthand knowledge of the office, the procedures, and I'm able to step into the treasurer's position without any interruption and also continue business as it is. And also, the staff is the biggest thing, making sure I work with them because they are also what serves the public the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we move to the county attorney candidates. Mr. May, why are you seeking re-election?
Thank you. I'd like to start by thanking the League of Women Voters for hosting this important event. I've been an attorney for in excess of 37 years, and before I was elected county attorney in 2018, I worked for 6 municipalities in Dubuque County and had a private law practice handling civil and criminal cases. I served on the Dubuque Community School District from 1991 to 1994 and have a long history of public service in this community where I was raised and where my wife Amber and I are raising our family. The Dubuque County Courthouse is much more than a courthouse. With about 400 employees, the county's operations serve more than 90,000 county residents, providing services, programs, and infrastructure at a cost of more than $70 million per year. From the airport to zoning, Veterans Affairs, public health and safety, including fire, EMS, and law enforcement, roads, libraries, conservation, civil service, and public land, just to name a few. Simply put, no 2 days in the office looks the same for me, but each day I rely upon my decades of experience to best serve and work toward the positive outcomes that Dubuque County taxpayers need. I've learned a lot during my first term as the Dubuque County attorney, and no doubt I will continue to learn more. If reelected, I will continue to work to protect the people who live here, the Dubuque County taxpayers' investment in the county, and I ask for your vote and look forward to your questions this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson, why would you like to be elected county attorney?
Well, again, thanks to the League of Women Voters and thanks to all of you people that are interested enough to come here and listen to us tonight. When I was here 4 years ago, I told people that I'm a lawyer, not a politician. I said that the office is non-political and non-policy. I said that the election was about experience and leadership, not about politics. Unfortunately, it was politics that won the day, and here we are. I do hate to say it, but I told you so. Past is past. We now have a second chance to get it right. I'm still not a politician, but I am by far the most experienced and best qualified candidate in the field. I've got over 30 years criminal law experience. During that time, I spent pretty much every day down in the trenches practicing criminal law. I've got over 30 years trial practice experience. While the others are arguing about 1 trial in 4 years or 12 trials in 10 years, I've got well over 100 jury trials under my belt. I've got a ton of experience to pass on to the younger lawyers in the office, and they're going to need that. I've got 12 years military leadership experience. I know how to lead, and I know how to manage an organization. I've got a whole lot more experience than all the rest combined. I'm running because I want to finish what I started 4 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Whitten, why would you like to be elected county attorney?
Thanks for having me. I'm running for county attorney because justice needs to be consistent. Consistency in justice means having results that we can hold up side by side and say they make sense when we look at them together. I'm also running because the county attorney's office needs to be run like a team. We need to make sure we're supporting each other and ensuring that we're making the best outcomes for our citizens. And that means supporting victims through the criminal trial process and being there when major decisions are being made at a county level. It means showing up to Board of Health meetings if they're debating a mask mandate, or showing up when they're making a shelter-in-place decision at the County Board of Supervisors. But most importantly, we've got to get the office to a position where we're working as a team and working with a common goal. And that starts with the top, with clear policies and clear expectations for everyone in the office. So that's why I'm running for county attorney.
Thank you. Our second question, which will begin with Mr. Clausen answering first, is why should the average Dubuquer care about these positions? You've told us why you want to run, but what difference does your position make in the lives of the average Dubuquer? Mr. Clausen.
Great, thank you for the question. I think for me, right now, especially with the treasurer's role, I would say, I'll look at it from this perspective. The biggest issue that's facing this position, and I would say I'd even take it across government, it's just a degradation of trust and teamwork. And honestly, it's a scary time in politics and in America, honestly. We certainly see this on the national level, but we're seeing it certainly on the local level as well with the treasurer's office and what they've went through and the other offices and what they're going through. And so really the answer sits with each individual person that's sitting here today and what they can do and who they vote for on election day. And really voting for a candidate simply because they're a Democrat or Republican isn't going to fix the ongoing concerns that we have in the nation and locally. really what we need with this treasurer's role, and it's not setting policy. A treasurer doesn't set policy, so really, that's why I say Republican, Democrat doesn't matter in this role. It's about taking care of the people, and the people are the citizens in this county. And it comes down to voting for somebody that understands finances, has leadership perspective, and ability to create transparency and visibility within the role. The other piece that I would say is what we can create is collaboration amongst the county departments. I don't think there's a whole lot that's going on. And working in the private sector, when you can create collaboration and you can share best practices amongst the departments, what you're going to see is that each department is going to become a better steward for the county or the residents of the county.
Thank you. Ms. Steffens, why should the average Dubuquer care about the treasurer's office?
The treasurer's office does many aspects for the county. They deal with registration, property tax. They can collect all the revenues for the county, receipt them, and take care of them. They also make sure that the elderly make sure they get the credits. Everything is taken care of. Your job is to make sure those citizens are educated, and your best bet is your workforce. Your workforce, you need to work with them, communicate with them, as well as communicate with the other offices. In our office, we definitely take things seriously and definitely try to educate the citizens as best as we can to get them all the information to get their transactions taken care of. It is their money that they're giving us, so they definitely want to make sure, or we want to make sure, they know exactly where it's going and what we're doing with it.
Thank you. Mr. May, what difference does your office make for the lives of the average person?
Thank you. Well, the Office of the County Attorney, and the County Attorney is the chief law enforcement officer in the county. So in addition to prosecution of all state and county violations, civil commitments, juvenile court, there are in excess of 40 departments and boards and commissions that the county attorney provides executive legal counsel to. These items are hugely important to the taxpayers in protecting the assets of the county, protecting their interests, developing best practices, and reducing risk for the taxpayers. Thank you.
Mr. Nelson, your response.
Thank you. The citizens of the county need to feel safe in their respective communities. People need to know that crime is being dealt with, particularly violent crime. The people want violent crime criminals out of the county. They want convictions, not acquittals. I am going to prioritize violent crime, particularly crimes involving weapons and injuries, and drug trafficking of large quantities of drugs. Human trafficking is another big issue. We need experience in order to accomplish that because having experience leads to having judgment. Judgment isn't something that just falls out of the sky. It takes a while to develop that. Once we have that judgment, then we're going to have more efficiency. We're going to know which cases we can take to trial and win and which ones we're going to have to deal with otherwise. I also want to bolster up communication between the sheriff and police department and the prosecutors. I want the prosecutors to be able to deal with their cases up front rather than a week before trial. I want them to be able to evaluate the cases, find out the weak spots within those cases, and get them filled in so that we can get these cases resolved more favorably. Better judgment means better efficiency, and we're not wasting county tax dollars going to trial that we cannot possibly win. We've got to make better decisions and make sure we get the job done for the people in this county. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wooden?
Sadly, no part of our community is immune from crime. And with our current administration, what we're seeing is violent felons being put on probation despite already being on bond or on probation. That doesn't bring out a sense of safety to me, and I don't think it brings out a sense of safety to the average citizen of Dubuque County. We need to ensure that people feel safe and they know that when they're victimized by a criminal, that they're going to be supported in the courtroom. That means having a qualified and well-staffed victim witness coordinator program and ensuring that those people are there to walk victims through the process and make sure they are taken care of, respected, and heard when they get into the courtroom. That's why it's important we need a county attorney who looks at this through a lens of justice and safety. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Murphy, why should we care about the recorder's office?
Well, I'm going to turn it back into a question for everybody to ask themselves, which is, what sets the difference between every first world country and every third world country? If you list them side by side, what is the difference between the two? It's not military strength. It's not the form of government. The real answer is it's land rights. That's what my office provides. So every time you purchase a property, the mortgage release, those documents all come to my office, and we preserve your rights for land rights. So that's the number one reason why you should care about our office. But as the Dubuque County Recorder, I understand it's a partisan political office, but I don't care if the customers are Democrats or Republicans. They deserve exceptional customer service. I don't care if my colleagues that I serve with from other counties as recorders are Democrats or Republicans. I've got great relationships there. I've been given tremendous responsibilities, in part due to the bipartisan support that I've had in the past. I serve on the Iowa Community Action Agency's commission and serve as their chair. I was appointed by Governor Branstad, reappointed by Governor Reynolds, and then appointed again by Governor Reynolds. I'm a proud Democrat, but in case you weren't aware, those governors are Republicans. When I sought re-election in 2018, I was endorsed by 20 Republican county elected officials across the state. 20. Primarily recorders, they're the people that know the job best in the state, with decades of experience combined. I sent out a press release and I didn't hear anything from local press. I called and was told, quote, it wasn't newsworthy. I'm sorry, but that's exactly what the public needs to hear. And it's not because it's me, it's because people need more faith in government.
Thank you. So our next question will begin with Ms. Steffens, is about how your offices work together. So each of your offices have special tasks and separate duties, but you also have to work together on issues. Please name some of those issues and how they tend to work out.
Okay, so for the treasurer's office, we deal a lot with the auditor's office as well. All the revenues, things and such that come in. We have to be very work with the budget, things like that, to keep all the offices in line and make sure the funds are where they need to be. So basically for us, we need to make sure that everybody is aware of that. We also work very closely with the Board of Supervisors as well. We have to present things to them, make sure they're aware of things that need to be approved by them, as well as we work with the recorder's office by doing their receipts and making sure that things are accounted for, as well as anybody else who wants to deposit monetary funds in, we have to put those into the correct accounts. We work closely with all of the departments, and if they have any issues, they come directly to us, and we have to work with them, and in collaboration, we get that taken care of.
Thank you. Mr. May.
Thank you. So the county attorney, of course, provides legal counsel to all of the elected officials. So from the recorder, the sheriff, the board of supervisors as a board, the auditor, the treasurer, and the county assessor, I might add, even though that's an appointed position. But under current administration, I review all legal contracts that all of the departments present to the board for approval and for expenditure of county taxpayer money. We also constantly are working on best practices. One specific instance I can think of working with Mr. Murphy was when the legislature passed the law to certain folks can try to, I guess, eliminate from the public records certain of their information in the real estate records. So myself, Mr. Murphy, the city assessor, and the county assessor sat down several occasions, tried to put that program together and present it to those who was eligible for that. And needless to say, I think you can see often I am in the Board of Supervisors meeting almost every meeting and answering those questions that they present and need legal counsel on. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson?
Thank you. I agree with Mr. May that part of the job would be providing advice and legal opinion to other departments, oftentimes through the Board of Supervisors. More importantly, is what I touched on before, is that there has got to be a closer relationship with between the police department, the sheriff's department, and the prosecutors. The police oftentimes go out, make an arrest. Once they get them locked up, they send it across the street, and that's the last thing they do. The prosecutors have got to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. Sometimes there's a pretty big gap between the two. I think that what needs to happen is we need a lot more cooperation between the investigators and the prosecutors, and we need to work on training investigators with an eye towards proving the case later on, making sure they go that extra distance, get those extra little facts that need to go into the case to get convictions. That would be probably the most important thing in terms of cooperating in between. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Mr. Wooden, how would your office work with other offices?
Thank you. As I've talked to members of the boards of supervisors, members of the various boards in our commissions in our county, and also the county auditor and treasurer, what I've heard is a concern about timeliness. As the county attorney, when you're providing legal services, it can't be on my time. It has to be on the schedule of the supervisors, the commissioners, the auditor, or the treasurer. So my goal would be to employ a dedicated civil attorney in the office whose sole focus and sole expertise is ensuring that the boards of supervisors, commissioners, auditor, treasurers, and other county departments are getting prompt and accurate legal advice so they're not having to seek it out through other avenues.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy.
Yeah, the first thought I had when I referenced digitizing all those records, one of them that we did was all of our military records. The first and most important reason why we did that is to protect them. So if something were to happen, the courthouse burned down, a flood, a natural disaster, that we don't lose all those DD-214s and those military discharges. Having that backed up on that Tier 4 data center is critical so that we can continue to provide these services. But another component that we added to that is we actually gave access to our VA office so that instead of the old process was that they would call over and say, hey, do you have a military discharge for this name here? We'd look it up. We'd reply back, yes, we do have it. Okay, cool. Can you print one off? They come over, they pick it up. There was a lot of wasted energy. We have now given access to our VA staff so that they can pull those records on their own without having to come over to the courthouse at all. They're now in a separate building, so they'd have to run back and forth in the middle of the winter to get those records. Now they can do that on their own. And with those digitization of all of our land records, what that does, I mean, there's excess of, it was like 2-point-some-odd million images that we went ahead and digitized. That is something that the assessor's office, the mapping office, the auditor, zoning, all use our site. It's also good for bankers, lenders, credit unions, abstract companies, funeral homes that we communicate with all of these digitized records, and it makes us much more efficient, but it also allows them to do their job more efficiently and not come sit at a public terminal in our office. And the last part, as the county attorney referenced with the Back to Blue legislation, was actually the piece. It was how to comply with a new law that was written and signed before anybody read it from the Iowa legislature. It was critical that I was able to sit down with them and walk through how to apply that, and ended up being the way the rest of the state utilized how to proceed.
Mr. Clausen, how does the treasurer's office work with other offices?
Yeah, great. Thank you for the question. And as I mentioned in my last statement, it's working in a collaboration effort, right? And it's opening that door and working with the recorder and working with the county attorney, working with the county sheriff. From the treasurer's role, and Angela gave the description of what the county office does, right? So I'm not going to go through that spiel, but you tear down those walls, you open the doors, and you work amongst each department. By working with each department, as I said before, is you're going to create that unity. You're going to get best practices from their department, share best practices with their department. So you're going to get best practices and efficiencies across the board. I would take it a step further, and of course, working internally, when you start that collaborative effort, start working with your vendors outside as well. And when I say vendors outside, I'm talking about the bankers, the banking industry, the car dealerships. When I talk about car dealerships, I get a great story about buying a car recently at a car dealership out of state, and I got told by him that the Dubuque County Treasurer's Office would not work with them on issues that they were having with efficiencies. That was just recently, it was a month ago. So if that's currently going on, what can we do? We collaborate with the other departments, we open the door, and we all work together to fix those issues and efficiencies. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to ask different questions based on the position that you're running for. We're going to start with Mr. May and the county attorneys. So, Mr. May, explain your position on utilizing restorative justice principles in adult criminal proceedings and your beliefs regarding their deterrent impact.
Thank you. So, One thing I've certainly come to learn and have observed in my 3.5 years as the county attorney is there is a serious lack of programming for various vulnerable sections of our community. Some of those in the greatest need are those that are suffering from significant mental health issues. We have created, prior to my starting, the mental health docket. Unfortunately, during during COVID, due to the one-on-one contact that was required to operate that system, it shut down. But it's back up and running again now, and I'm pleased. I committed a staff person, an attorney in my office, to run that, and I've continued to do that to date. I've worked closely with the Fountain of Youth in the Dubuque Community School Districts to work with the Workforce Acceleration Program, which will put inmates to work once they complete the program successfully. We have, through our victim witness coordinators, have worked very closely with victims, registering them, getting be paid their damages, and assisting them with victim impact statements. And these are all items that allow us to move toward a sense of justice for all those involved in the system and best practices. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson, it was a long question, so I'll read.
I'm fine with that.
All right.
I would start by saying that I am not a social engineer. I'm pretty much old school. I think that if someone does the crime, they should do the time. I am not that hardcore, however, that I do also think that mental health issues are a serious issue that the criminal justice system is not well equipped to deal with. I've dealt with mentally ill people many times in the course of my career. Quite often you get someone that needs to be medicated. We can go get them medicated. They'll get 30 days worth of medication. They get released. They either don't take the medication because they feel better and think they don't need it, or they run out of medication and then the cycle starts all over again. I don't have a clear answer for how to deal with that. We used to deal with it by sending them to a separate institution, but there's no money to do that. That's not a criminal justice issue. That's a funding issue through the state. But we have to deal with the bottom line on that. The Fountain of Youth is another program for youthful people. Like I said, I'm kind of hard on that, but I also have a heart. I don't think that people on the first time out that do something stupid should get the book thrown at them. I think everybody should get a chance. I believe in deferred judgments for people. I believe in trying to get them on the right track. Restorative justice is a way to do that. However, I have very little tolerance for recidivism. How many times can they come back before you do something?
Thank you. Mr. Whitten, what are your opinions on restorative justice?
Thank you. Restorative justice is the future of nonviolent criminal justice. In the winter of 2020 and into the spring of 2021, the Dubuque County Jail was housed overwhelmingly with nonviolent offenders through the COVID period because trials were cut off. During that period, I worked with Caprice Jones at the Fountain of Youth and Jim Jelinski, who operates a restorative justice program, along with Deputy Mike Menster and Public Defender Leah Latner, to create a program where nonviolent first-time youthful offenders, youthful being less than 25 years old, would be permitted to complete a program, and at the end of that 9-week program, be allowed to have their case either reduced or a lesser sentence, or let a judge decide whether or not this work they had put in was sufficient to get a reduced sentence. We took that program to the county attorney's office, and we never heard back from him again. Later last year, when Ann Cameron Williams and Amy Crow Sunleaf began looking to put together a mental health court for using ARPA dollars to do that, we met several times with police, sheriff, and judges. Again, the county attorney's office would not engage. And these are the steps we're going to need to take for nonviolent offenders in the future through restorative justice and mental health courts. We need someone who understands them and wants to be involved in them.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy, what did your office do during COVID to keep working?
Yeah, so some of it was beyond our control. The Board of Supervisors did completely close the building. While we were not having customers initially into our office, the front lobby did remain open, and we did everything either online, through drop boxes, or through the mail to start. Once we began once that occurred, we have a small staff. There's 6 of us total. My initial concern was to protect our operation and to protect our staff. So we actually split into 2 parts. We took over the old jail. We put 3 of us over there. 3 of us stayed in the courthouse, and we had a split staff for a full year. It was a very challenging time for all of us to get through. But when we started taking appointments, I worked with the treasurer at the time. He and I worked collaboratively to set up an appointment system with about 12 hours notice, because the board did not tell us in advance that they were planning to reopen right away. So that's how we started to reintroducing customers into the recorder's office. And we operated that way for another 6 months or so. I have followed CDC guidelines from the get-go. Some masks were required maybe a little bit longer than what the rest of the courthouse required. But as soon as they gave me a green light to remove the masks, we did that as well.
Thank you. Mr. Clausen, what changes would you make to the treasurer's office?
So I think one of the biggest things that, again, I'm sounding like a broken record here, but one of the things is collaboration, number one. The second piece to that, what I would do that I think that hasn't been done that I'm aware of, but so I'll go back, I'll digress. In the banking industry where I currently work, a lot of what I do is go out into the community. My face is seen, people see me. I get to know them, they get to know me. It's a relationship. And I don't think too many of the county offices currently do that. So the biggest thing that I would start doing is going to events. I've been going to events, and a great story, we're going to an event on Saturday, and my daughter said to me, "Dad, are we going to keep going to these events after you're elected?" And I said, "We'll probably be going to more," because to me it's about visibility. When you can be visible in the community, you earn the trust. When you start earning the trust from the people, which that office currently needs, you can start to build that rapport with those people. And when you build that rapport, they're going to start coming to you, and they're going to interact with you out in the community. So one of the biggest things I would do is become visible, approachable, and get out in the community and go to these events. And not just in Dubuque, you're going to all the county events. And you got to keep doing it so that you can be seen, be heard, and let the people be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm having a hard time talking tonight, excuse me. Ms. Steffen, what changes would you make to the treasurer's office?
Right now, we're kind of going through staffing, different things with them, trying to get them more in a group. We're doing the third Wednesday of each month, we do a monthly meeting with all the staff, get them all educated on anything new that's going on and the changes with the laws. That is something that I definitely would keep in mind. Also, being visible in the courthouse as well as out of it is definitely a plus. You want to make sure that you're seen in that courthouse working right along with your staff, just as I do currently now. I want to continue that working relationship with them and be a working treasurer that works alongside of them and doesn't miss a beat, up to date on law changes, making sure that everything is up current, as well as staying on top of anything tax related that we need to carry through in the office. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next question is again going to be asked of everybody, and we're going to start with Mr. Nelson. Should members of your office be affiliated with political parties, and how would they be selected if they aren't?
I'm not tracking that question.
So when people run for your office, so county attorney, should we know political party, or should that be a politicized office?
Oh, well, my thoughts are it's a non-political office. It's non-partisan, it's non-policy. Politics should have nothing to do with that office. It should be who has the experience and who's the best qualified to serve in that office. However, having said that, it doesn't matter how you carve that turkey, it's going to be political no matter what you do. Everybody in a political party is going to know who their person is, and the word's going to get around, and it's going to be an election, and it's going to be political. So the bottom line on that is it shouldn't be political, but it is political, and there's really nothing you're going to ever do to change that. So I think what we have to do is get to the voters, get to the electorate, and try to convince the electorate that this is really a non-political position, and try to get people to focus on qualifications rather than on politics. Is that going to work? I don't know. I did that 4 years ago. I said it's about experience. I've clearly got more experience than anybody in the field. The last time around, politics won. This time around, what I'm hoping is people are going to see the light and say, let's go with the experience. It's a second chance. So that's pretty much the way I see it. We can't fix it. It's wrong, but it's the way it is, and it's going to stay that way.
Thank you. Mr. Whitten?
I don't know that county offices should be political and partisan, but I do think there are subtle differences between what a Republican or a Democrat might bring to the office of county attorney. For instance, a moment ago, Mr. Nelson said he didn't really think that restorative justice was appropriate. He thought he was more old school, I think was his term. And as a Democrat, I believe restorative justice is something that we should be employing. So I think it gives voters a guidepost for what some core values and beliefs might a candidate hold, but I don't think it should be the sole answer when going to the voting booth.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy?
Yeah, good ideas come from Democrats and Republicans. I think that I've had a good working relationship with Supervisor Potoff as well as the Democratic supervisors. I don't foresee it being an issue in the relationships that I've had at the courthouse with my party affiliation or the party affiliation of the people in the building. And I can say that honestly, that I don't think that's an issue currently in our Dubuque County Courthouse. I've been selected to serve as one of the 2 legislative lobbyists for the Recorders Association in Iowa. I serve as a Democrat. There's one person that serves as a Republican lobbyist. Her and I've worked really well together for the last 3 years in that capacity. And it's interesting because the Recorders Association took a position that they do not want to become nonpartisan offices, and that was uniform with supervisors, that was county attorneys. All the organizations indicated that they did not want to revert to a nonpartisan role. Maybe that's because that's who currently serves in that capacity. I would suggest if it's going to occur, that's something that we try to maybe sunlight 10 or 15 years down the road, so it's something that everybody can adapt to. But I think that's a decision for the legislature, not for us.
Thank you. Mr. Clausen?
Yeah, thank you for the question. What I would say is based on state law, there's really zero policy making from the treasurer's office, and that's for obvious reasons, right? That being said, I think there's a stark difference between setting policy and being an advocate of policy. As a county treasurer, you need to be an advocate for the residents in the county, ensuring several different things. Number one, you're a steward and watchdog of tax dollars. You're effectively managing the office. You're investing the funds to get the top dollar to support those allocated recipients, as well as making this would be my goal, is to make the office a financial watchdog. You're creating a role of transparency that is non-existent under previous leadership, and really showing the people where the tax dollars are going, including any misuse or wasteful spending of funds. So really, political affiliation certainly shouldn't play a role in any kind of key positions, I would say, for the treasurer, recorder, attorney, or even the auditor and your county sheriff. I think these positions should really be as impartial as possible, and we're here to be stewards of the residents of the county. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Steffens.
I agree with Mr. Clausen here. It's an office that should not be run on political views. It should be run on experience, someone who's willing to open up and have knowledge and willing to, to agree to disagree with people, or to, as well as getting yourself out there to help the citizens of Dubuque County. That is your main job in that office. The citizens are they are what you serve, and that's what you need to do, and you need to be there and take care of that on a daily basis. Political party or not should not matter.
Thank you. Finally, Mr. May.
Thank you. Well, county offices are certainly important elements for efficient and effective taxpayer service all across the county. And I think that the two-party system helps frame the issues for election purposes, but I can tell you that I have never made a decision based upon party affiliation during my term of office. Thank you.
This question, we're going to begin with Mr. Whitten, and again, it's a question for all of the candidates. What practices and norms will you implement in your office to help recruit and retain quality, knowledgeable staff?
So, I first believe that a leader should be transparent and work from a position of mutual respect. When it comes to the folks that already work in the county attorney's office, I've worked with them for 6 years, and some of them for longer. I have a respect for them, and I have got the impression they respect me as well. To bring in new folks into that family, we need to start by bringing back our internship program. The county attorney's internship program seeded a lot of the big law firms here in town. Partners all across town started off as a county attorney intern. I got my start there too. I even had 2 jury trials, one against Scott Nelson in 2009. We can bring in new talent by bringing in new people. Look, the law schools are in Iowa City and Des Moines. Kids want to stay there. But we can bring them to Dubuque and show them, look, there's a career here, there's a future here, there's an accepting and open bar association here for you. And to bring in new talent, we've got to have somebody who can relate on that level. With that in mind, I'm an adjunct professor at Loras College, so I work with students of this age on a regular basis. I know what they're interested in, and I know how we can get them to Dubuque. And it's by being open, respectful, and straightforward with them. So those are the steps I would take to try to bring in new talent.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy, how would you recruit and retain new talent?
Yeah, so in my office, we have a couple of deputies that both have about 20 years experience with the county. They've been huge assets to this office and to the county and to all the residents, frankly. We do have 3 relatively new staff, and when we brought them on, I was flabbergasted actually at the applicants we had apply. Starting wages, we're talking under $18 an hour for clerk positions in my office. When we hired them at $18 an hour, we had educators. We had people in the healthcare industry applying. They were applying because of the challenges they're facing in their own industries, and I think they like the 8 to 4:30 that we have. They like the pension. They like the great health insurance. But that was, I think, a big reason as to why we had these people applying for these positions. So I think some of the things are built in that will help us, but I look forward to having these new employees that we have in the office, being able to train and develop them, and hopefully, I was told once by an old boss of mine that when you hire good people, they're going to leave, and that's something that I kind of took to heart, because if you hire a great person, you teach them everything you can about the job, about that role, what's going to happen? They're probably going to spread their wings. They're going to find other opportunities. So you can't look at someone about just retaining them. Sometimes the best thing for them is to go and find new opportunities, whether it's hopefully in county government, otherwise in the private sector.
Thank you. Mr. Clausen.
Thank you again for the question. Obviously, this is a question that is statewide issue, right? It's staff retention and how do you retain good staff and how do you get good staff? And there's conversations happening in Des Moines, there's conversations happening in Washington, and how do you do that, right? And that's the $1,000,000 question. It's, working with the GDDC in Dubuque here, working with the Chamber of Commerce, and they're working on how to get people into this community, right? So that's the question. For me personally, it's leading from the front, and that comes from my Marine Corps background. I start at the front, I learn what I need to learn so that if I have to teach people, I'm able to teach those individuals on how they can be competent in that role. If I don't know what I'm doing, there's no way people are going to follow me, number one. Number 2 is be an advocate for your office. Again, I go back to being visible in the community. The only way you can do that is becoming an advocate for your office, and being an advocate out in the community and being excited about it. You're going to draw great people into that office. And if you do those things, the talent will come. But again, you've got to be able to lead them from the front, and you got to be an advocate for your office. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Steffens.
Thank you. I believe for your workers, you bet the first thing is respect. You have to respect your workers as well as communicate with them. You can't sit back there, big wig, and not work with them. Get your hands dirty, get in the title work, get in the registrations, get in anything you can to know that they know you're working side by side. The other thing that's good with the county as well, with the benefits, and then they have the IPERS, we also have a union that works with the employees. And if you can better them by getting them a higher promotion in the union and they know that you're working with them, that also helps them retain them. Your workers want to know you work with them, not against them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. May, how will you recruit and retain quality staff?
Thank you. Well, we've been very fortunate at the county attorney's office to always have high-quality staff, and we have continued with that to this day. The internship program is still alive and well. My primary opponent here has forgotten that in 2021 we were still suffering from COVID. It was my judgment at that time to not bring an outside others into the office. There had been some criticism about COVID in the office. There were some applicants this summer, but unfortunately, they took jobs that paid far greater. And I think that's sort of an ongoing issue for all of us, is compensation for our employees. I can tell you that when we have posted positions, for example, for the victim witness coordinators, we have had in excess of 20 applicants for that particular position, which made the choice very difficult. I am proud to say now that we have the first person of color in the county as a prosecutor, and I am very proud of her, and she is going to do great things. But I think at the cornerstone of any successful organization is communication and accountability for all persons there, all persons, and to allow certain that people to be kind of exempted from the rules and the regulations is only to the detriment of the others. So moving forward, I am confident that we will have a fine workforce for the county. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Nelson.
Thank you. I've had over 30 years working with the county attorney's office. I was probably working with county attorneys there when Mr. Wooden was still in shorts. I know all of the attorneys in the office. I told them when I met with them that I saw each one of them born into this profession. I saw them take their first steps. I saw them dropped off for their first day of kindergarten. I know them. That's what I do. I agree that the intern program is a good program, and I think that we've got to utilize that to get people to come in. What's important, though, is a program that I envision is like Top Gun. There's some good young lawyers there. I can make them better. This is like football recruiting. First, you got to have a good program, and then people come to you. If you're out looking for them on a bad program, they're not going to come. So I want to build that program up, and I've got the experience to do that. That always comes back to experience. That's what I can do. I want these lawyers coming into work every day thinking there's no place they'd rather be than coming into the office and working, and I want them going home every night feeling like they've accomplished something very important. So with that, I think in time, you build a good program, you send these interns back down to law school, they talk, and pretty soon your program is the talk of the town, and they're going to want to come.
Thank you. Now we have a question just for the county attorney candidate, so you guys can take a little bit of a break. And we're going to start with Mr. May and then go through. How will you use your role as county attorney to address racial discrimination in our criminal justice system?
Thank you. Well, at all times, we need to be very concerned about any kind of inequity in our justice system, particularly in our criminal justice system. I think it all begins with investigations and law enforcement, and certainly those cases as they move into the prosecution end. We take a look at every single case, and we have had to make some extremely difficult decisions these past couple of years, particularly as it pertained to youthful offenders. You've probably read some things in the paper about the reverse waivers and sending some of the youngsters back down to juvenile court. And those decisions, whether we have either consented to that or resisted, have come as a result of meetings with teams of lawyers in the office to decide what our best position should be for that particular individual. So as a general matter, we look at each and every one of these cases, and we make certain that everybody's being treated equally. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson.
Thank you. I've been working in the criminal justice system for over 30 years, and I've represented black defendants, white defendants, Hispanic defendants, Asian defendants, Muslim defendants, Sikh defendants, you name it, I've represented them at some point or another. Over those 30 years, I just don't see where there is racial discrimination in our system. I've seen our police officers do wonderful jobs out there. I don't see it there. I hear a lot of complaints, but these are from people that are in jail or within the system, and that's something that they want to raise, even though factually it simply doesn't exist. I also look at the whole system. In fact, I look at our community as being kind of devoid of that. I don't recognize a black community. I don't recognize a white community. I don't recognize an Asian community or Hispanic community. I just recognize community. And this community has to be together on certain standards out there in terms of criminal justice. There's got to be a standard that says we're not going to tolerate violent crime. We're not going to tolerate people shooting and stabbing other human beings. We're not going to let them back out into the community. And the message I want to send is if you're going to commit a violent crime in our community, whatever color you are, pack your bags because you're not going to stay in our community. You're going someplace where they can keep an eye on you. Thank you.
And Mr. Wooden, how would you use your role as county attorney to address racial discrimination in our criminal justice system?
Thank you. So the Iowa Supreme Court for the last several years has taken a really hard look at what's called implicit bias. These are biases that all people have, whether they know them or recognize them or not. There's been studies out of major universities confirming these biases. The Iowa Supreme Court even makes jurors watch a 15-minute video so that they, when they take on these major cases, are knowing to put their implicit biases, whether they be racial, gender, sexual orientation, or otherwise, aside as they decide these cases. That same sort of training needs to be happening not only within the county attorney's office, but with those that interact with the county attorney's office on a regular basis. That includes training for police and sheriff, EMS and fire, and also to ensure that we've got victim witness coordinators of all walks of life and able to relate to people on a one-to-one basis, give the support that our victims deserve and are required under the law. Thank you.
Thank you. And now a question for everyone, and we'll begin at the beginning with Mr. Murphy. What is the most important matter facing the recorder's office, and whichever office you're seeking, and how can you use your experience to improve it?
I think it's something that's affecting all of us, anybody that's looking to hold elective office. That number one issue is just public trust. It's eroded in ways that I would have never imagined. I've worked in some form or another in politics and in government since I was a teenager, and it's hard to watch. When you hear the public complain that they don't trust anybody, and that goes for any of us. And it really doesn't matter party affiliation, that they don't trust government officials. I think that would be one of the biggest pieces, and I think there's been times that maybe we're not giving the public all the reasons to trust us. So I want everyone to understand what it means to me to be an elected official. It's an honor I don't take lightly. The office is bigger than me. It's my opinion. The same goes for the supervisors. Same goes for the county attorney, the sheriff, the auditor, the treasurer, the city council members, legislators, members of Congress. I think that's something that we all need to take to heart, that office is a lot bigger than any individual. My goal, when my time comes to leave this role, whether it's by retirement, by getting beaten in an election, or going a different path, is to leave the place better than when I left it. When I leave, it's better than when I arrived. So, if I'm reelected, I'll continue to focus on providing exceptional customer service and always look to provide modern solutions to the challenges that we face. But that's my one thing I would love the public to understand, is that most of us take this very, very seriously and try to put our best foot forward.
Thank you. Mr. Clausen?
I would say the most important piece is that customer service. It's you residents in the community and how we can provide that customer service. First and foremost, how we can do it more efficiently. Are there more efficient means? And what I bring to that office from the outside looking in is I can look at those different things that are going on, and maybe everything is efficient as it can be. But without an outside eye looking in, we don't know that. We don't have any idea if they really, truly are efficient. And what I can tell you from working with county governments in my role now is they're not as efficient as they can be because they tend to run like a county. That being said, I understand it is county, but there are different efficiencies that you can put in place. And again, I go back to the collaborative effort. My experience within the banking industry, a small business owner with my wife, an adjunct professor at UD, teaching management classes, selling, macro and microeconomics. That's my experience within this role. And those are the facets that I'll bring to this role to be able to help the county be more efficient and be able to serve the county residents as best we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Steffens?
Thank I feel that the most important matter in the treasurer's office is communication, transparency, making sure that everybody knows exactly what they need to, especially with their tax dollars, with their registration fees, where things go, what goes on. Making everyone feel that you can ask a question and not feel like you're getting questioned back. Making them feel like asking anything doesn't make them feel dumb, that makes them feel like they're getting educated right back. You need to make sure that everyone is aware of everything. We do collaboratively work with our banks. Since I've been there in the last 3 months, we've had the banks stop in, visit with us, tell us what we need to know, get us allocated, get us someone personal in that industry that we can turn to if we have questions. We deal with a lot of local banks in Dubuque County. We spread it out so that way we're not all just in one area. We are an office that works with very many entities in the county, offices, as well as different places in the county, like dealerships and things like that. Your best bet is to just make sure that our customer service is there and the communication is open.
Thank you. Mr. May, what's the most important issue facing the county attorney's office, and how can your experience help?
To me, the most important item would be protecting taxpayers' interests and reducing risks. We do that through providing best practices and effective and fair prosecution to ensure public safety. Each and every taxpayer in this county has a vested interest in this particular office of the county attorney. They are entitled to have the best work done for them at all times. And we do that by effective leadership based upon experience and integrity. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson?
Thank you. I think the most important issue right now facing the office is the exodus of experience from the office. Many of the more experienced attorneys have turned over very recently. And right now, I think there's a lack of experience in the young lawyers. They have some experience, but they need a lot more. When I was a young lawyer, I had the privilege of coming to being under some pretty darn good trial lawyers. I learned every day. I would go out and I would get corrected. I would get taught. Eventually, I was on my own, but I still got corrected from time to time. I learned a lot in those days when I was a young lawyer. That's what I want to do with the young lawyers in the county attorney's office now. Now I'm the old lawyer. I have a lot of experience that I want to pass on to those younger lawyers to make them better lawyers. By making them better lawyers, they're going to have better judgment. Better judgment means more efficient operations. With a little bit of leadership, the office will move in the right direction. And at some point, like I said before, we'll be able to recruit newer attorneys to come in and get the ones that are there to start helping the young ones along. And in time, it's going to be a very smooth running operation under my leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Whitten?
Sadly, I think the most important issue and the root problem in the county attorney's office is morale and turnover. We're still not sure whether or not Rich Kirkendall has a job in that office. We lost a senior drug prosecutor a week ago. More staff are departing last week again. And morale is low. There's not a team attitude in that office. And I've got a history of working with a team. At Reynolds and Kenline, I worked with Todd Klapatowskis and Natalia Blaskovich incredibly closely, not for the benefit of ourselves, but for the benefit of our clients. We didn't sit there and argue about how to get things done. We put our oars in the same direction and rowed together. And that's what the county attorney's office needs if it's going to rebuild morale and bring in new attorneys who want to stay for the long haul and do the important work that justice requires. Thank you.
Thank you. So as you know, the League of Women Voters' goal is to expand democracy and empower voters. How can you use your position, if elected, to support democracy and to empower voters? And we're going to begin with Mr. Clausen.
Again, I'd go back to the visibility piece in the community. The only way that you can expand democracy for the Treasurer's Department is to be in the community. I mean, that as simple as I can state it. I said it, I told you at the beginning of this that you're going to hear transparency, visibility, and accountability, and that's what you've heard from me tonight, because that's what I think are the most important pieces to the Treasurer's Department, along with being stewards of your guys' financial dollars, right? But it's being in the community, being visible, being at events, make sure that people see you. And when you do that, you can promote the democracy of the department, you can move the department goals forward, and you start to gain that trust that has been lost recently in the county departments. And when you do that, again, you're going to start to have a prosperous county and a prosperous department. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Steffens.
Being in the public eye is something that is a privilege as an elected official. You should be at the best that you can be at all times. Being in the public, and like Mr. Clausen said, being visible is something that is definitely an asset. I currently serve on our county, on my church finance council, which also brings community together as well. You want to do as best you can fiscally for them as well as the county. You want to make sure that you're there for every entity and supporting anybody that you can, just to kind of bring everybody together. It's been a time where everybody feels kind of segregated. It's time to bring everybody back around to each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. May.
Thank you. Well, needless to say, the Office of the County Attorney isn't necessarily service-driven as far as providing a particular document or something to a paying taxpayer. In my opinion, the County Attorney's Office supports democracy and expands voters by effective prosecution at jury trials. Often when we are selecting juries, some folks are not too pleased to be there. We have the obligation to let them know that this is a process that is important to our democracy as a core value. And by them doing their part and our doing our part by advocating for our victims in the courtroom, it makes the entire criminal justice system work. And at the end of the day, what we find is those folks that may have been reluctant because they had something else to do for the day or the week, they come back and they say, this has been an extremely educational and rewarding process to sit on this jury. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson.
Well, I would think the best thing to do to encourage, expand, and promote democracy would be deter people from committing felonies and losing their voting rights. The less people do that, the more voters we're going to have. I would agree with CJ about the whole process and how we as attorneys, not just prosecutors, but all attorneys, need to spend time, and we usually do, talking to juries about the process and explaining the process, that it's part of the Constitution, is part of people's duty, and that's what makes democracy work. I have a pretty good speech I give sometimes on that, but it is highly related to promoting democracy in the community. So other than that, the county attorney's office really doesn't have a whole lot to do with promoting democracy.
Mr. Wooden.
The jury process is the most democratic and beautiful system of justice on the planet. And we should do everything we can to ensure that all defendants are offered the right to a speedy and public jury trial. That means ensuring that their defense counsel has timely discovery. It means ensuring that we're not hiding the ball and keeping back discovery. It means being open and transparent so that the defense counsel and the defendant is given their full and fair hearing before a jury of their peers. Additionally, and outside of the criminal justice realm, I'd point out that in the last several years in Iowa, we've seen attempts by legislatures and governors to take away and limit our access to the voting booth. I would, as county attorney, seek to work closely with Kevin Dragato, the county auditor, as he ensures that everyone who's able to vote is not only able to vote, but can vote and does vote. And I would make sure that we're interpreting the state law in this county that says, if you can vote, please vote.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy.
Yeah, I want to focus on the providing customer services as kind of our role. And the Dubuque County Recorder's Office is one of less than a dozen counties in Iowa that is a self-sustaining recorder's office. What does that mean? That means we don't take property tax dollars to operate. Everything that we do is service-based. So if you buy a new boat, snowmobile, ATV, that $1.25 that stays in Dubuque County, it's a whole lot of those that help us operate. Same with the recording of property records. It's $7 page one, $5 for every other page. That's what we use to operate. We don't use taxpayer dollars. Since I've been in office, we've saved over $700,000 for Dubuque County property taxpayers. Our revenues increased almost 7% annually since I was elected. Our expenses have increased about 2.6% annually. We're one of the few counties that send out renewal notices. Again, it's not something we need to do, but we do it because it's what's right for our customers. I've heard a few references to efficiencies, and nobody believes the government can be efficient. But I'll tell you what, Dubuque County has the smallest staff in Iowa with a population over 40,000 people. We are incredibly efficient. In the last 3 years, when we look at what's been occurring with COVID, it's actually been an incredible boom for the work that we do in our office. Our real estate recordings are up 38% in the last 3 years. Our vital records are up 27.6% in the last 3 years, and our DNR renewals have increased 42.7% in the last 3 years. It's been an incredibly busy time, and I have to thank my staff for making it work.
Thank you. Our last question before closing remarks is there anything else that you would like to talk about that we haven't brought up this evening so far? So what other issue or issues do you wish we had addressed? And we're going to begin with Ms. Steffens, I'm so sorry.
It's all right. I've come back to the office, and I think that experience is something worth it. It's not always the most educated. It sometimes is the person with the most experience and willingness to get out there and try. I may not have the 4-year degrees that everybody else has, but I have a 2-year degree and 18 years experience with this county. I think that I would do an efficient job, and that it also, I'm not just working for me, I'm also working for the staff. I really think that they deserve the best that they can have. And I think that would be something that I would be definitely able to promote for them.
Thank you. Mr. May?
Thank you. Well, I'm running a grassroots campaign with contributions coming from people who live here, pay taxes here, and who understand the integral part of my experience as it plays to help protect the county's assets and to keep our community safe. Over 99% of my contributions come from these particular taxpayers, but I'm extremely surprised to see most of my primary opponent's contributions, over 64%, comprising over 57% of his total contributions, coming from people outside of Dubuque County. It would be common to see this in legislative races where outsiders are hoping to influence issues in any particular race.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson, what issue would you like to address that we haven't yet today?
I think we've pretty much covered it now that Mr. May brought up that issue, but I just have a question as what interest would out-of-state people possibly have in our county attorney's office? That is most interesting. I don't have an answer for that. Mr. Wooden might. I think we've covered pretty much everything tonight. I just want to keep coming back to experience, that I have experience like none of the others have. I have leadership that none of the others have. I've got 12 years of military leadership experience, which I think is required to get into the office and get it moving in the right direction. That fixes the morale problem that's been brought up. It fixes a lot of things. I have a lot to share with the young lawyers. I want to bring them along, teach them what I know, make them better lawyers, and make that a better office. Recruit newer people coming in that are going to want to come there, not run away. It's going to be like the football program. People are going to want to come. So,
thank you. Mr.
Can I have 30 seconds of silence?
I'll address the question about my donors to begin with. I'm grateful to have had donors from across the country pour money into my campaign. And those donations came because I've practiced law in Tennessee and I've taken trainings across the country. Lawyers from California to Florida know that I am a man of integrity and can handle the public trust. And they have reached out willingly and generously to support me. I'm fortunate to have friends across the country, and I'm not ashamed that they support my campaign. One thing I would have liked to talk about tonight is the relationship with the police department and the county attorney's office. Too often, the county attorney's office is a black box where cases come in and results come out, but there's no feedback to the police officers. You can imagine if a police officer was at a shooting range and never got to see their target. they might not get to be a better shot. So I think we do need to discuss at some point the relationship between the county attorney's office and the feedback loop to the police department so they can not only get better, but so that we can have more just results in our county. Thank you.
Mr. Murphy.
The one thing I like to tell is some of the stories that happen at our office, and I gave you some of the data and some of those hard numbers, but the truth is what it really matters in our office is the services that we provide. The best example I can think of is Carol, one of the deputies in our office, got a standing ovation from friends and family as she delivered a marriage license down the aisle at the cathedral because the bride and groom forgot to pick it up on a Friday night. Those opportunities to go above and beyond is what my staff does on a routine basis. That's something I advocate strongly for. So that's one of my favorite things to talk about is when they go above and beyond. The other thing I'd like to reference quick is if you haven't been to the recorder's office recently, we did do a renovation in our space. It's the first one in 40 years. We tried to give it a museum-like vibe. There's a phrase on the wall that modern humans first appeared about 200,000 years ago. Record keeping did not begin until about 5,500 years ago. That means 97% of humanity's lost. And it struck a chord when I read that, and I decided then that I want to put some of our stuff out on display. So we have military discharges from the Civil War era sitting in a display cabinet, along with some death records from the 1890s, along with some of our earliest birth records in the late 1830s. I'm trying to give that museum vibe in the office so that when you come, hopefully people understand our operation a little bit better. The 4 reasons that we did the renovation, number 1 was privacy. We have pretty difficult conversations talking about paternity and why certain information isn't on those vital records. Security, we used to have the public walking by our cash register every day. Productivity, our staff used to have to run back and forth. And the last piece was ADA compliance. So I'd invite you down to the recorder's office.
Thank you. Mr. Clausen.
One thing that wasn't discussed tonight, which is an integral part of the treasurer's office, is the county investments. And it wasn't touched on, and most people are unaware that the treasurer's office handles that piece of it. And there's actually an investment policy committee that's appointed by the Board of Supervisors. And what happens is they make a recommendation to the treasurer for those investments and what they need to do with those county funds. One of the things that I talk about when I look at that policy committee, and really it's just a maximum rate of your return, right? It's $34 million in that investment fund, and most people are unaware of that. And how do you get the most out of that, the maximum return? Well, with my background and my experience in the banking industry, the connections that I have is looking at that committee. Does the committee need to expand to 5 people? When you look at that committee, what is it made up of? Who's on that committee? So start looking at those pieces, and those are the things that are going to help the county when you can start maximizing those investment dollars that you're using. Thank you.
All right, and now it's time for closing remarks. Everybody will have 2 minutes to wrap up and make one last plea for why we should vote for you in the primary. And because we began with Mr. Murphy in the beginning, we're going to start with Mr. Whitten for the closing statements.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you to everyone who came and showed support tonight. I'm sorry I haven't talked to you. They told me to talk to the camera, but I appreciate you being here. Look, I'm running for county attorney because we need a justice system that is consistent and based in teamwork. My career has been focused on criminal law, environmental protection, fair housing, personal injury, employee rights, and civil rights. I've got a wide breadth of experience, and I know how to work as a team. I'm a trial lawyer. Ask yourself, who do you want giving a closing argument in the next murder trial in Dubuque County? I think that'll make your answer really simple. You should vote for Sam Whitten on June 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson.
Thank you. 4 years ago, I ran on experience in leadership, and politics won the day. I'm here again offering experience in leadership. The other candidates are offering more politics. It's pretty much a fact that I have far more experience than the other candidates combined. I'm clearly the best qualified to fix and run the office, and I intend to represent all of the citizens of our county. I'll prioritize violent crime, especially crimes involving injury and weapons. People need to feel safe in their homes and on the street. I'll get the violent criminals out of our community. I'll prioritize drug trafficking and human trafficking, but our task force is stretched thin. Meth and heroin and fentanyl are pouring into this country at the southern border, and that border's got to be fixed. We need to interdict the drugs at the source. That's going to save us a lot of problems up here. Takes the pressure off of us. I'll defend the Constitution, including the Second Amendment, and I'm going to ensure that the punishment fits the crime. I'm going to back the blue. I've worked with them for well over 30 years, and I think they're very good people doing a good job, and it's a tough job. There's a choice to be made in November. My experience or more politics. Politics won the last time. This time, I want you to look at experience. Try something new, try something different. Let's get it right this time. Dubuque County needs me now more than ever. We need change. We need common sense. We need common sense for a change. That's what I bring. I'm asking for you to vote for Nelson in November, and let's fix these issues in our community together. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. May.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to thank the league and all who have participated here tonight. In closing, I am running for re-election to continue in the role of Dubuque County Attorney. In 2018, I promised to protect Dubuque County's assets and make myself accountable to taxpayers. I pledged to maintain public safety, build public partnerships to help our most vulnerable citizens, and to proactively reduce crime. I kept those promises and more. When faced with the unprecedented pandemic, I rose to help define new ways for the county to continue to serve taxpayers and residents. If I am reelected, Dubuque County taxpayers will have the benefit of my decades of experience, including all that I have learned in service of the county's best interests over the past 3.5 years. I am again asking for your support on Tuesday, June 7th for Dubuque County Attorney and to vote May in June. Thank you.
Ms. Steffens, closing remarks.
Just wanted to thank everyone for being here tonight as well as online. I just want to kind of go over, I am running for county treasurer. I believe I'm a great candidate. I have 18 years experience in the county, working with the zoning department, working with the health, roads, treasurer's office. I've worked with the assessor's office. I've been in connection with all of those people. I have good rapport. I work hard. I have a great work ethic, and I plan to work very hard for the treasurer's office to bring morale up and to also bring devotion and timely service to all citizens of Dubuque County. Please vote for me June 7th in the primary. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clausen.
Leading with a voice is what Dubuque County needs in all their elected officials right now. With me as your treasurer, you'll get someone who will lead with a voice. This is what leading with a voice means to me. I'm a veteran serving proudly for 8 years, leading Marines in combat and receiving the Operation Iraqi Freedom Medal in 2006. On top of learning leadership skills during my time in the Marines, I also learned what selfless service means. Oversight can only be achieved properly by having the background necessary to see potential errors. Working in the financial industry and co-owning a small business with my wife, I understand how to thoroughly review financial statements and tax documents. Integrity. The county treasurer should be one of the most reliable and respected offices in the county. The only way that can happen is to bring transparency and visibility back to the office. Commitment. There needs to be a new commitment to the people of this county from their elected officials. My military, teaching, and banking background are all roles that require commitment to succeed. I will take this role of Dubuque County Treasurer with the same heartfelt commitment. We need to ensure that the office is providing exceptional service to every single person that visits the office and continually looks at ways that we can better serve the people. Experience. I'm the only qualified candidate that has the experience with banking background, proven leadership, and managing personnel, and an unwavering desire to serve the people of Dubuque County. I will bring transparency, visibility, and accountability to this office, something that has been lacking for years. My ability to adapt and quickness to learn will be assets that are intangible to making this office succeed and working with the current staff to have a seamless transition when I'm elected in November. I ask for your vote in November, and thank you for your support.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Murphy, your closing remarks.
Thank you, Lisa, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting this evening. When I look at my background and what got me into this role, I've been an active participant in the community, whether it's being a volunteer wrestling coach at the middle school for the last 3 years, working with the Dubuque Area Labor Management Council, serving on their board of directors, the Governor's Commission on Community Action Agencies. But specific for this job, I became secretary of the Iowa County Recorders Association's executive board, just my first year serving. Kind of caught me off guard when I was asked. I served in that role for 2 years, served as vice president of the association for a year, and then finally as president in 2018 to wrap up my first term as the recorder. And I've since, in the last 3 years, have spent that role as the registered lobbyist. I hate that term, but advocating for recorders' responsibilities in the state. That's you're going to find somebody that's committed to being the best they can in this role, as long as you're going to let me keep it. I guess my closing will be a story for the folks listening in, but also a message to the people that are up here, sitting up here with me. I want to take you back to November 4th, 2014. It was 33rd birthday. Happened to be the day I got elected for this role, and it was a bittersweet day. I got the opportunity to serve as the Dubuque County recorder, but I also watched my father lose an election that night. He lost a race to serve in Congress. You see, I was the district director for our sitting member of Congress that night, and I watched as my father lost, and my boss lost that night. I listened to a great speech that my father gave to Congressman-elect Rod Blum that night about what it means to serve, and it touched me and meant a lot then. But see, service is at the base of all of this for all of us, because I watched as I had to call Congressman-elect Blum's staff and offer to tour all of Congressman Braley's offices and try and help him transition through to have an effective office. That's our role. At the end of the day, nothing more, nothing less. As long as we get this responsibility, we need to be taking it upon ourselves to be the best representative that we can. So thank you, and I would hope for your support in June and in November. Thank you.
Thank you. And the Dubuque League of Women Voters thanks all of you for the time and the commitment that it takes to run and to work in county office. We greatly appreciate it. This forum may be seen again on City Channel Dubuque, on Cable Channel 8, or Digital 117.2. It's being streamed live on the City Facebook page and website. Thank you to the City Cable Channel for providing the service. I'd like to thank the voters for watching and for providing questions. The League's General Election Forum will be on Wednesday, October 12th. Residents of Dubuque County, please remember to vote on June 7th. Thank you.